NRL Fantasy buy, hold, sell for round 12, and welcome, guys, to the State of Origin period, the major buy rounds, the 13 player weeks. Biz, welcome to the club. How you feeling, mate?
Feeling good. Had a rough week last week in fantasy, but love the buy schedule. Might be a bit easier this year with a lot of rounds with only 13 players needed, but these are the rounds that separate the men from the boys. I've got 11 right now. A couple of trades to get me with 13. A couple of shock selections. Rob Toyer making Origin. Congrats to him. I'd say well deserved. But how about you, Longy? How are you shaping up for this week?
Man, I'm feeling good. I've avoided a lot of the chaos. So I have 12 players before trades this week. So I can sort of play a bit luxuriously and maybe even add some depth spots. But I'm fighting that temptation to triple trade and trying to save a couple. Now, for today's video, bit of a different format, Biz. So we're going to go through position by position. So starting at hooker, working down the list as you'd see it in your fantasy team through mid, edge, half, center, wing, fullback. Going to talk about the gun, mid ranges, and cheapies at each position there. And then we'll go into the sell table. So it's a spectrum of full blown must sell guys like Dylan Egan, all the way down to guys that we think are probably more likely holds, but you could sell if you really wanted to. So that sell table, if you want to skip to the end and look at that, you can, but you really want to skip to the positions that you're thinking about as well. Because this week you're trying to fill certain spots, right? So if you have 3 middle forwards already, you don't need to watch the middle forward section. You might jump straight to the half spot. In that spirit, we're going to jump straight to hooker here first. Big Aaron Clark sitting right there, and he's sitting up at number 1 spot here. And for the hooker position, I'm grouping Aaron Clark and Blake Brayley together. They're probably the 2 big gun hookers that you're going for right now. Clark is the big dog scorer. He's playing without Mitch Barnett and also without James Fisher-Harris, who's suspended, whereas Blake Brayley covers 2 buy rounds. So could be a bit more appealing there at a cheaper price. How you feeling about these 2, Biz?
Yeah, Aaron Clark in my team. I wasn't sure if I was overpaying a couple of weeks ago. Man, he's been good. I mean, 70 odd average in the last 5 games. These green asterisk options, I assume they're the captaincy options, right? And that's exactly where I'm going. I think Aaron Clark's my captain this week. I think Aaron Clark's proven that he's deserving minutes. And, that was the question. Is he a 45-minute player? Is he a 55-minute player? Or is he now locked in for this 70-minute role? Honestly, he's playing good enough, though. I think 65 minutes is now his floor for at least the foreseeable future. Obviously, last week's tough. A couple of, people going down, so who knows what his minutes are really like. But I think he's going to play 70 minutes this week. Could go 70 plus. Great option. And then on Blake Brayley, I'm skipping Blake Brayley at this price. If I'm not going at the gun at the top of this stack, I'm going at the bottom of this stack. So I know you'd probably agree. I mean, we've never really been Blake Brayley fans in fantasy. He just is what he is. He's just going to be at that price. He's not going to bust any games open for you. So I don't know. Do you disagree?
No, you're exactly right, right? So Aaron Clark covers hooker and middle. Blake Brayley, if you compare him to a middle, he's kind of like Corey Horsburgh, but, sort of 5 points worse than Corey Horsburgh. So very reliable, very safe. If you're a first-year player and you want to plug in a hooker and not think about it too much, Brayley's a good option. If you're a coach that wants to take gambles elsewhere and just wants a safe hooker, you can go for Brayley too. But from my perspective, I'd rather go for a bit more upside. And that brings us into the next section here. So everything from about 574K down to about 450K here. We've got Starling, Tommy Starling, Reed Marnie, Riley Smith, and Jazz Tavanga. Now, I'm getting asked a lot of questions about should I buy Riley Smith? Should he be the target? And I think a lot of people are falling into the trap that he was the guy we've been talking about for the last few weeks. So he's the guy that they should be going for now. My view is that his price has jumped up to 466K. We saw him with a bit of a niggle last week. I think it was just a cramp in the calf, but a bit of a niggle, bit of a chat that Parramatta might bring Josh Papali'i onto the bench to play a bit of hooker this week as well. So there's just enough chat there that I think Riley Smith, he's a hold if you have him, but he's not a guy to target right now. In the same vein, Jazz Tavanga, and these are my 2 hookers, by the way, so I'm talking them down. But for Jazz Tavanga, I think the fact that Jake Trbojevic is out this week due to HIA rather than due to playing Origin is really bad news for Jazz owners because it means that Gerbo's not in the Origin team at present. And if they win in Queensland, which I'm tipping them to do, then Gerbo may not make it back into that state of Origin side for the Blues, which would mean that Jazz Tavanga then becomes just a pure middle forward rotation guy. In the same vein, Lachlan Croker's come back into the 17. So there are 2 genuine hookers in that 17, which means Jazz likely doesn't play much hooker anymore. So the question is, does he get the minutes there? Now, I think he's playing well enough too, but at 400 and I think he's about 450K, it's not worth the gamble for a guy who's probably only going to be productive in the major buy rounds. Would you disagree with any of that, or do you want to jump straight into Starling and Money here, Biz?
That's a great analysis, and you're right. They're tricky priced. Riley Smith, cramp or cork last week. He's still pretty solid, but I mean, the ones I'm looking at, you got to remember they're only about 100k cheaper than Starling Marnie right now, and we know what Reed is. Like he can be a 50 average guy. He's even average 64. He's having a bit of a bad year fantasy wise, but it's kind of like Bulldogs are doing so well. They're not grinding tackles in the game anymore. They're getting ahead. There's less game and play because they're scoring tries. That could be the story for Reed's not playing as well. But the other one is Starling. Now, I started with Starling this year, and he was great for me at the start of the season. Kind of was getting 65 minutes to start the year, then dropped to 55, kind of peaked, and now he's getting 80 minutes 2 weeks in a row. Owen Paddy last week coming on for Zach Hosking, I believe, towards the end and playing 10, 15 minutes. I mean, that's an interesting one. When Starling plays 80 minutes, he's got the shot to be the best hooker in fantasy. If it's not Aaron Clark, like he's a 55 plus guy when he's playing 80 minutes at hooker. So he's a really interesting option. I think if you need a hooker this week and you're willing to gamble on it, say you have no hooker this week and you had to pick one of these guys, I honestly could look at Starling. If he keeps playing 80 minutes, and he's been real good, like the Raiders have been good, he's been real good. They don't need Owen Paddy in these games. Like, honestly, he's just really utilitarian support at this point. Like, I mean, he doesn't barely gets on the field, and Starling's been owning this role this year. So I love Starling. I love Reed less this year. I think that he's just kind of another Blake Brayley, whereas at Starling, I see true upside. So if I had to rank the top four here, I'd honestly probably go Starling and Aaron Clark as my top two, equal top. Aaron Clark better scorer, but Starling better value. Then I'd have Riley, then I'd have Jazz, and then I'd have Blake Brayley in order of who I'd buy.
Yeah, interesting. I'll just throw a few things in here too, because for Starling, there's three big factors in my view. So obviously he's got that 80 minutes, which is fantastic. But Hudson Young has been selected for Origin. That takes Sungi into the starting side for at least round 12 and round 18. That definitely helps Starling's minutes and security there. Second thing, Matty Nicholson, 12 weeks on the sideline. That takes Hosking out of the middle forward rotation, puts him on the edge, and that reduces the pressure on minutes there for Starling as well. And the third thing is he re-signed with Canberra, right? So he's now part of Canberra's future plan. I believe he wasn't going to be, but now he is. I think they might have sort of looked at what they have and just decided, hey, you know what? Starling's a better player than Owen Paddy for now. We're going to keep this going. So his position at the club is different than it was when people were talking about selling him. So he's a completely different prospect now, red hot option. For Reed Marnie, also a red hot option, plays an extra major buy round. Is the big benefit there. Now with Reed, I actually think this one's more interesting because you got Hayward there, right? Who was the reason why Reed wasn't playing 80 minutes. And him not playing 80 minutes was the main reason why his scoring was dropping off there. With Hayward now going into the lock role due to Kurt Mann being in Origin and Jamin Salmon being out for an extended period, Reed has pretty good job security for 80 minutes. So 550k, I believe he is. Whereas Starling, I think, is about 570. Reed could be that guy that covers all the major buy rounds. So if you're looking at Jazz Tavanga and thinking, hey, I want him because he covers all three major buy rounds, Jazz is only 100k cheaper than Reed. And Reed is a similar scorer with far better job security who also plays the non-major buy rounds. So I think Reed's a fun one. But that Starling, Reed, Marnie section, if I needed a hooker, which I don't, unfortunately, I'd be eyeing off both those guys. And I think they have nuclear upside. Because I'll throw you for this last guy here, Zach Docker-Clay. Do you think this is worth it? Round 12, round 15, round 18 coverage as an exclusive hooker, it's pretty nice, but he doesn't play any of those rounds outside of that. He probably doesn't make heaps of cash because he does come on and play those, 5-minute games. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, look, me personally, dwindling on trades to bring in a guy that's just temporary. I don't think so. There's enough options on this hooker list to avoid Zach Docker-Clay. I know a lot of people are hot on him. Like he will score well when he plays big minutes at hooker. Like we've seen, he's almost like a Connor Watson scoring profile when he's playing at hooker, right? Like he's real solid. He tackles a lot. He runs the ball. I thought he actually looked excellent at hooker in the games he filled in this year. But I mean, what are you going to get out of him? A few games, 2 trades. maybe 100K. I personally would be avoiding. I think there's better upside options and upside shots here. But I know some of the casual athlete crew are getting on him, so maybe I'll be wrong. But I think he'll definitely serve a purpose for certain coaches, but for the majority of people, I wouldn't be going near him.
See, I don't mind him. I think if you've got Aaron Clark there, for example, he's a nice one to have. But yeah, like we talked about, Starling and Marnie, they have genuine top 17 potential, especially Starling. So I think they're easier options to stomach there. Let's roll through the middle forward here. And for the mid spot, we've got the big guns, Joey Tarpanay, Adam Fanua-Blake. We'll talk about mid-rangers here as well. So Morgan Smithies, Liam Henry, and Victor Radley. And then Hot Boy down the bottom there, cash out option that we did talk about a few weeks ago that has really stepped into a starting role now. So Joey Tarpanay, Adam Fanua-Blake. This one is interesting here, Biz. So Joey Tarpanay plays rounds 12 and round 18 when it comes to major buy-round coverage. Fanua-Blake plays 12 and 15. We've seen Fanua-Blake sort of quiet recently, but he had that massive game where he led Cronulla to an upset win over the Storm. He scored 80-plus fantasy points, whereas Tarpanay just been consistent. What are your thoughts on these guys? And if you were jumping on one of them this week, would you prioritize Tarpanay's consistent scoring, or would you save a bit of money, go for Fanua-Blake, and cover yourself in round 12 and round 15?
That's a really difficult question. I mean, I like Tarpanay's scoring profile. I think he's getting bigger minutes this year. I think he's a reliable PPM guy. Although he only played 50 minutes last week, so it is a fall. He still scored 58, which is great to see, but that's pretty much what he was priced at. I think he was priced at 58 for last week. Fanua-Blake is more hot and cold this year. Like, they're fluctuating his minutes quite a bit. Like, there's some games he's playing 65, 70 minutes, like last week, and then the next week he'll play 40 minutes. Do you want to handle that inconsistency? With Adam Fanua-Blake, if you owned Fanua-Blake since round one, some weeks you're probably thinking, yeah, I'm so glad I have him. And then the next week you're probably thinking, is he a sell? I don't know if I need that energy in my side. That's half my team anyway. But I would be going, look, it's an interesting one because if you're buying them now, it means you're pretty much buying them solely for buy coverage, right? So Fanua-Blake covers two of them. I like Tarpanay more because I think he could be a keeper all season round. Like, we've seen that he's a 60 guy this year. Like, even in reduced minutes, the way Canberra's playing, the way his scoring is going, he's just elevated in all aspects this year. A lot more tackle breaks, a lot more offloads. So I think Tarpanay is in your final 17 to end the year, whereas Fanua-Blake is not. And so I would be getting Tarpanay myself just because, like, when I see buy rounds, if you can get a keeper and a buy round player at once, like, that's great for you because you're getting great scoring and you're saving a trade down the track. So I think for 80K difference, I mean, the other thing is, look at your buy schedule. Like, look at your round 15 mids. Like, do you have mids for round 15? Because frankly, no. I don't. I don't. So, I mean, I have Tarpanay, but maybe by buying Tarpanay, I got myself into this predicament where I have like no mids for 15. So that's you. Then go Fanua-Blake. So look at your round 15. If you've got a couple of mids already and you can add some mids later, because everyone's going to want guys like Koloamatangi, etc. For that round. But if you've got no mids like me and you have to choose between one of them, I'd be going Fanua-Blake. But if you ignore that, I would be picking Tarpanay.
You make a good point there too. If you're planning to get Koloamatangi next week, which all of us are, factor that in as well. So if you only need one mid for round 15 and you're covered at edge already, and you're planning Koloamatangi, you might as well go Tarpanay instead. So it could work both ways. I own both these guys. So look, Fanua-Blake, I sort of bought him. I said at the time he's going to have, low scores, high scores, bit up and down. I'm buying for the average. I'm buying for this origin period. He's a Kiwi. Cronulla relatively unaffected. I think he's going to dominate through this period. So I think he can pop off. And then I'll mention Cam McInnes as well. There isn't that much we can say about Cam. Like, you can look at his scores, you know exactly who he is. His minutes fluctuate a little bit. He's a very solid, consistent guy. I don't see it changing much. I think you buy him and you pay exactly what you get and you plug him into your team. He's also in that Fanua-Blake vein where he's sort of a fringe keeper rather than a full-blown keeper. Tarpanay is a captain option this week too, by the way, guys. So good matchup this week. He should be very solid up against the Warriors without Fisher-Harris and Barnett. So I think Tarpanay pops off this round. Mid-ranger is actually a bit more exciting. So Victor Radley, Morgan Smithies, and Liam Henry. And I've put Smithies and Henry together because they're the same price. And I think they're actually two of the most fun options for this week. Now, Victor Radley, I'll talk about him first. Roosters have great buy coverage. They play all three major buy rounds. He averages sort of 45 to 50 when he plays in that starting lock role and plays good minutes there. The risk is HIA, but his origin schedule is actually kind of positive for major bye round coverage and HIAs. So Vic Radley has a bye before the round 15 major bye and before the round 18 major bye, meaning a 1 week HIA layoff isn't possible for the second major bye or the third major bye. He's playing this week. So you pretty much have a sort of soft guarantee that he plays all 3 major bye rounds, which is good. Smithies and Henry are a bit different. So Smithies, I'll let you talk about Smithies because I know you're right into Canberra and their sort of rotations biz. But Liam Henry, named in the second row spot, we both know about this. He averages 62 in 3 games in the second row. Usually plays pretty big minutes there. Makes about 57 tackles a game to get that average. So no attacking stats in that 62. Absolutely crazy. If Liam Henry played multiple major bye rounds, I'd be all over this. But even with him only playing the first major bye round, I still think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if Liam Henry got an 80-minute edge role, he would be the best edge in fantasy by far. I reckon. Like, he's just an absolute fantasy beast. But out of this, look, I'll talk about the Canberra rotation. You're right. I spent so much time analysing it at the start of the year because there were so many options. If people thought at the start of the year, people were analysing Hosking. Nicholson was potentially an option. I had to do the research on Starling, obviously Tarpanay's minutes. So, look, I'll talk about Smithies first. I think he's a bit of a trap because I bought him at about 500k last year and he never elevated. And I think he's hit or miss. He has some games where he just plods around to a 35, and then he has some bigger games like last week. I personally don't love it. I know with Nicholson gone, he's back at the lock position. But even then, like Smithies, unless there's HIAs or injuries to Canberra, he doesn't really get the huge minutes he needs consistently. Even when he does get 60, 70 minutes, he just has too many of these 35, 40 scores for my liking. And I know he's cheap right now, but again, he's really a rental, right? Like, you're not playing Smithies most weeks unless you have to because of the risk of 35, 40. So if you want a rental, I'm going Liam Henry because I'm confident he'll score 50, 60 this week. And every time he fills in, like for example, in round 16, when Liam Martin doesn't back up, like he could be there again and he could score another 60 for you. The only problem is no Garner this week, no Isaiah Papali'i this week. So that's probably why he's there. They've got Preston Ricky on the other side. So I don't really know what it looks like on a week that they're available. Like, is it Preston Ricky who gets dropped for Papali'i? Is it like out of those players, like who's the actual starting edges for them? When Liam Martin's out, I suspect it's Isaiah Papali'i starting on the edge. And then Sorensen's always hovering around too. So with that in regard, I wouldn't be able to buy Henry personally this week, as much as I'd love to because he's a great scorer. So that's why I think Smithies and Henry are probably no-goes for me. Radley's quite interesting. I think he can definitely do a job for you. He's not a bad scorer whatsoever. His average just gets crushed by all those HIA games, etc. And that was a great round or schedule analysis by you, Longy, giving the soft guarantee that he'll be there. I hope that doesn't come back to bite you. But yeah, look, I think I'd prefer Radley over these. And I'll let you talk about the last cash on list because I frankly don't know too much about him. So 255k starting prop for the doggies. Max King making Origin, which was a super surprise for everyone. Over guys like Convertungi and Terrell May. But, maybe sometimes we look at things with too much of a fantasy lens on and we expect the guys who are killing in fantasy to make the team. But I won't talk about that. But, yeah. Boy, what are your thoughts?
Before I jump to Hopboy, just quickly on Smithies, because you put a knife through the sort of Henry case there pretty well. You basically destroyed that one. But Smithies, my counter here is that we've seen a PPM uplift, and I was just looking this up on my phone as you were talking. We've seen a PPM uplift from the Canberra forward pack in general. So Corey Horsburgh, right? His PPM has been fantastic. Tarpanay's average increase of 7 points in the same minutes indicates that as well. Now, Morgan Smithies, just had a look. His PPM this year is 0.9 compared to a 0.7 last year. His historical average in games where he starts at lock and plays decent minutes there is 45 points in 62 minutes. If that jumps up to a 0.9, which is ambitious, that would be a 54 average. Now, he's priced down in the 30s there. So I personally reckon if I needed a mid this week, I'd be looking at Smithies. I'd probably be jumping on Smithies. I just don't need a middle forward. but I reckon there's a massive chance that you get a 45 average out of him pretty safely, and the potential upside for even more. So that's my case on Smithies. If I needed a middle forward, he's where I'd go on this list, even though I do already own Joey Tarpanay and Fennell Blake. But obviously, if you didn't own Tarpanay already, I think he's the best one to go for. But if you did have Tarpanay, Smithies is a fun one. Hopoi here. Now, we did talk about Hopoi a bit last couple of weeks in the cheapie slot. Like what I've seen from him, man. Just when you watch him play, he makes an impact. He bends the line. He plays positive footy. He got 45 minutes last week, so pretty big minute stint there. Not a massive score for fantasy, only around that 30 mark. But in general, I just think he's a good player. So I think when there are opportunities for him to get into the team, he's going to be good. The risk here is that he starts this week, he plays really well, he scores well for you in fantasy, and you're thinking, sweet, I've got him for round 15 and round 18 as well. I'm going to be set here. The risk is that Tupanua comes back, Preston comes back and maybe pushes Curran into the prop rotation as well. We see Salmon come back at some point later in the future, as well as Sam Hughes coming back probably next week, possibly even this week. So there's just a bunch of guys. That's three middle forwards I've just named, right? And you throw in the fact that Max King potentially doesn't make the Origin team in game 2. Hopoi in that equation isn't playing for the Dogs in round 15, right? So that's the risk there. It's a fairly likely risk as well. I think it's quite unlikely that Hopoi will be effective for you across 3 major buy rounds. But at 255k, if you for some reason didn't have a bunch of cash in your team, maybe you started late or you missed a lot of the cash cows, you could do this cash out. He'll do a job for you. But I just don't think he's a guy that you really want to be targeting if you have other options.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the other thing is there's enough good mids this week that you don't have to count on someone like Aaron Clark, for example. You could get him in the mid rotation. Same with Jazz. So I wouldn't be doing. I mean, if I was against Zach Clay, I'd be even more against Boy. So I don't think he's a real option this week, except for the scenarios you mentioned.
If we had massive squads, by the way, different thing. But we only have the 21-man squads. Now, we did a lot of detail there on hooker and middle forward, guys, because a lot of people need those positions covered. We're going to go a bit faster through edge, half, and center because they're probably not as needed. And then wing fullback is a bit more detailed as well. And then the cells is the biggest part of the show. But for edge forward, I've got 5 guys here in the same group. So Kai Pearce-Paul, Hamole Olakau'atu, Josh Curran, Zach Hosking, Britton Nakora, just ranked by price there, just sort of working down the list. For this list here, I think if I'm just going to, let's try and talk about them as a group here, Biz. I think Hosking is the guy that you sort of have to have. He's at a really good price there. He's a guy that, can average 60 plus with Hudson Young play Origin. Potentially Young gets a few of those rests instead of Hosking. He's just a must-have option there. So he's the great one. Kai Pearce-Paul, rock solid, very expensive, but averaging mid-50s there. Was on track for 75 till he got sin bin last week. So I think he's a cracker option too. And a fringe captaincy option. Be Hosking is as well. And you could take a gamble on Olakau'atu, Britton, Nakora. They're more of an attacking stat bet. So do you think Manly are going to tear Parramatta up this week? Do you think Olakau'atu is going to be a part of it? Probably a safe bet now that I said it out loud. Or do you think maybe Britton Nakora with the Cronulla Sharks are going to, tear the Roosters apart who are missing half of their forward pack? Probably a safe bet as well. And then Josh Curran's the last one here. He should get a few minutes through Origin, but I think as they get their guys back, he fades into irrelevance. So for me, he's the least exciting of this group.
Yeah, I mean, Hosking, I agree. I mean, you've talked about all of them. I think the best option is Hosking. I think, look, as we said last week, he's not an 80-minute guy for Canberra for whatever reason, even though Nicholson is. He's a 68-minute guy, specifically 68 minutes, not 65, not 70, 68 minutes. Yeah, I said exactly that last week. I don't understand. It's like Ricky has it on his alarm clock at the 68th minute. It's like Hosking off, no matter what the situation. Anyway, I mean, Hosking at his price is the best buy. Kai Pearce-Paul is really elevated this year, fantasy-wise. He had a bit of that run last year where he was playing really well and then he dropped off. I think first half of the year he was making 100-plus meters a game. Second half of the year, I think in the last 10, 12 games, he only crossed 100 meters once. So I'm going to take your 100-meter rule for 5/8 and apply it to Kai Pearce-Paul as well, specifically Kai Pearce-Paul. So I think he's a great option. He's looking almost close to a keeper. I wouldn't say he's a keeper quite yet. There's some great edges this year, but Kai Pearce-Paul is looking good. And then Olakau'atu and Nakora are the upside shots for sure. They can get on hot runs. They can score multiple 70s in a row. We saw Nakora kind of at this price last year, and then during the Origin period, he got really hot. Could happen again this year. No,
Just
no
can I throw it
real.
at you here? I'll throw a question at you. Let's say you had Zach Hosking already. You couldn't afford Kai Pierce-Paul, and you were thinking, I want Olakau'atu and Nakora. Which one are you betting on for that attacking run through this period? And does Olakau'atu being on the extended bench push you against him?
Yeah, I mean, I think Olakau'atu could factor into Origin at some point with injuries or if Blues cop a loss. I'm taking the gamble on Nakora because we saw it last year when the Sharks are unaffected by Origin, they come up against some weaker teams. They can go pretty hot, and Sharks are, steadily on the way up this year. Hines is there. That Hines and Nakora combination is fantastic. I think because Trindle's dominating playmaking a lot more, Nakora's getting less attacking opportunities because Nakora is like Hines' guy. Like Hines loves feeding Nakora. They do like really good, like attacking like lines together. And Hines is like a really good sleight of hand type of passer. They can find Nakora hitting those holes. So I really like Nakora here for the upside. I think he's pretty much base price. And he's no chance of Origin, whereas Olakau'atu would easily be there round 15. And I think the difference is Cherry Evans not around right for Manly, whereas Hines is. So you're taking Cherry Evans and replacing him with Jake Arthur for these rounds. The problem with that is, I guess you can arguably say there's more reliance on Olakau'atu to make attacking plays. But I personally would be going Nakora because it's just this situation where you're going to buy a guy for round 12 and 15. And then all of a sudden he might not be there in round 15. So I personally, if there's too much risk there for incremental reward, and I'm taking Nakora instead.
Yeah, Olakau'atu has that risk versus reward 100%. You're right. He could miss round 15. He could also play round 15 and round 18, right? So there's that full spectrum of outcomes. I'm with you though. I think Nakora, he's also 70K cheaper as well. And historically, he's like a 48 to 51 average, just like clockwork. I don't think he's much worse than Olakau'atu. And I haven't seen those signs from Olakau'atu this year that he's going to be that guy for fantasy. So Sunny's the last one here as well. So 265K. Again, if you needed a cheap one, he's there. He'll play rounds 12 and 18, probably starting. He's like a 38 average in 76 minutes. So he's not a great scorer, but he's there and he's cheap. But for this group here, if you're targeting an edge, it's Hosking and probably Pierce-Paul. And if you want to take a shot at Olakau'atu or Nakora for the upside, think about whether you're backing Manly or you're backing Cronulla through this period.
I'm just going to throw one more name on there, and he's my third edge for the week. Sadly, don't have space for him since I have Wong and Hosking. But like a Halasima,
Yep.
80 minutes, and Nakora is the one going to the bench instead of him. He's still at a decent price. I will run some reserve grade stats by you. Yep. 52 average, playing 80 minutes in reserves. It's kind of doing nothing and getting 45, 48. Still priced at a decent hit. So I wouldn't mind a gamble on a guy like Halasima. Nuclear upside. When he gets some attacking stats, he could really pop off. I bet you this week when he's in my NPRs as my third edge is the week he pops off, guaranteed. Yeah. But I don't mind if you've got Hosking already. A guy like Halasima is your second. I mean, I would love to play him, but I've got Wong there. So Wong's not a buy. He's too expensive for what he's doing right now. But Halasima, I like it.
Can you loophole? Do you have another edge?
I cannot. No. Unfortunately, it was Dylan Egan, who we'll get to later in the show.
You could buy Aitken this week or Kolomatani.
Yeah,
that would be an option.
I
wouldn't hate that, actually. If you just let one of them play early, I think it's the Roosters that play first.
Yeah.
So if you let Wong play, just sort of see if you want to loophole him, that could be an option. But the one thing I will counter there with is Capewell is still at center.
Yeah.
So I worry a little bit about that 80-minute role when Capewell goes back into the back row.
There's a risk.
He does, though. I mean, there's no guarantee he does, though, because RTS is back and he's playing on the wing.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Maybe Capewell stays there. I doubt it, though, with Leah Tower coming back. But yeah, it could be a spicy upside pod there. Then the half section, this is pretty straightforward, right? We got 3 big guns, 2 mid-rangers. The 3 big guns are all in the captaincy conversation. It's Isaiah Katoa, Nico Hines, Jamal Fogarty. Quick notes here. 2 of them miss round 13. So Isaiah Katoa, Nico Hines will play in round 12. They'll miss the week after. If you have both of those guys, you better be damn sure that you have 2 other halves you can play next week. Now, a lot of us have Fletcher Sharps. We're pretty okay. You might have Nathan Cleary, Hugo Savala. You might have Cam Munster like I do, or some other option there at half 2. But just be conscious of that. I'm seeing a few people jumping on Nico Hines, Isaiah Katoa when Savala's their only backup half and putting themselves in a tricky position there. Now, of this three here, Biz, last week we talked about rankings. I think we both said Katoa, Hines, Fogarty. Is that still the case there?
No,
With your captain?
I mean, last week I said Hines. I
Sorry,
said
mate.
Hines because I said my thoughts was Isaiah Katoa was like at his peak, and scoring that 60 average, 70s, and I thought Hines was at his worst, scoring 55s. I still think Hines has a 100 game in him, even with
Great.
Trindle dominating. I think he just hasn't taken like he's scoring and he's getting a lot of assists still. He's like second in the league or something for assists, Hines, but he hasn't broken the game up with his running game yet. Hasn't scored many tries this year. There's going to be a game where he has 3 offloads, 100 meters, 5 tackle breaks, and he'll score 80, 90, and he'll end up averaging more. I still think Hines is a better fantasy player than Katoa. I think everything's just going right for Katoa right now. But on the flip side, I mean, it's hard to run with Katoa's run of form recently. Like he's scoring 70s and he's not scoring tries to get there either. So maybe I'm wrong. I just don't see it personally. But I'm still personally taking at these prices. I'm taking Hines, I'm taking Katoa, and then I'm taking Fogarty. Still is my rankings.
Yeah.
But actually, now that I see this list, I actually prefer Matt Burton over all three of these guys at that 550 price. And I know we'll get to him, so I'll let you opine on these three before I get ahead of myself.
No, look, we've got different cases here. Like I've got Hines in my team as well, so I don't disagree with what you're saying. But Isaiah Katoa, back-to-back 70-plus scores, no attacking stats at all, 5 forced turnovers across 2 weeks. That's about 10 points a week. So even if you knock him back to 65, it's been very impressive. But for this group, I think the question is captaincy, right? So if you're going to get one of them and captain them, who do you go for? Now, Isaiah Katoa has the Dogs. The Dogs have some pretty fragile edges that they're turning up with. And I'm going to talk about Herbie Farmworth at center as my captain after this. But I think Isaiah Katoa does benefit from that. Like you said, I don't know if he does have that sort of 90-plus upside. Whereas Nico Hines up against the Roosters without their entire starting forward pack and Rob Toya as well could just be an absolute dynamo. Are you considering captaining Nico Hines this week, Biz, or were you talking a load of smack there before?
Come on, man. You can't do me like that. I always said I'm captaining Aaron Clark this
Put
week.
you on the spot, mate.
I mean, now you put me on the spot. Maybe. I mean, I just
considering.
think
No, you don't have to
I'm
do
considering.
it.
I just hate this. Like I would hate.
It's frustrating, right?
This year, a 70 as a captain is disappointing. And Hines is just getting 55 consistently. I think I bought him 5 weeks ago, and he scored between 50 and 60 all 5 times. I'm just waiting for the breakout. It could be this week, definitely. But I think I'll stick with Aaron Clark and Nico as my VC. But great. I mean, I'd definitely take them both over Fog. Fog is just not fun to own in fantasy. He's just going to give you 55. Like, okay. There's no excitement watching him. You're never thinking, "Oh, could this next play be like a 30-point play?" So, I mean, Katoa's similar actually. Katoa's an accumulator. Hines is
the running
game. Katoa's running a lot more this season, so that's good to see. But now I will get to Burton. So Burton obviously had injury games, and like that lowered his price, and then he wasn't kicking for a while. All of a sudden, last week, 500 kick meters. He's got the goals back. 54 average last year, priced at 41. He also misses next week, if I'm correct there. I think Dogs do miss next week. Yes. So I was thinking, damn, do I just use this week to upgrade a Savala to a Burden or something? But then I'd have like no halves next week. Like my starting halves would be King Togia and maybe Fletcher Sharp, which is not the worst. I mean, I could gamble on that because I think Burden you're getting 12, 13 points underpriced and could be a real pot option. And I just don't think he's that close to the origin order this year. I mean, could be. I think Watson is just such a great utility that I can't imagine Burden making that squad. And we've got Blues have got a ton of centers and a ton of halves this year. Like Luai was unlucky to miss out, and you got guys like Turbo and stuff missing out, and Kiraz. I mean, now he's injured, but I think Burden is he's a great option. If you don't have any of Katoa or Hines, I'd be going Burden over the both of them. I wouldn't want to get 2 of them just because they both miss next week, but At 549k, like it is hard to ignore. 41
Mm.
break even this week as well.
Yeah, mate, scorching hot, scorching hot. And he dominated kicking last game too. So Toby Sexton kicked about 50 meters, but Burton did the rest there, which is great to see. Had the goal kicking. Like everything is pointing in the right direction. I'm half considering a luxury trade of something like Jackson Purdue. We'll talk about him in the cells in a second as well. Jackson Purdue to Burton for basically a straight swap. So
Yeah,
both of them
me too.
halves. Burton's got the same level of running game that Purdue has, plus dominant kicker, plus goal kicker, plus being in a better team, right? Purdue, I loved him at center, but I don't need a center right now. I've got Herbie Farmworth. I've got Dylan Lucas, who's back in the back row this week as well. I'm pondering that and just playing Burton over Savala, which it could be an option there, but yeah, it's a tough one. And then Luke Brooks here, he's here too. I got to mention him, right? Luke Brooks averages 53 across 2 games without Cherry Evans for Manly. So he's a dominant kicker when Cherry Evans is out, about 600 kick meters a game. That 53 is basically without attacking stats, so 1 try assist. So Lukey Brooks has a good run of fixtures, very good run of fixtures, good attacking possibility sort of games. Plays all 3 major buy rounds, 477k, no origin risk unless like COVID happens or something. So at 477k, like I'm telling you, he could be in a different season. We'd be talking about him as a hot nuclear pod. Now this year we're not short on money, so we don't need to do things like this. But I still think if you're a team that's really behind, maybe you're in a head-to-head league and you're struggling, or in your team play, your head-to-heads play through this period, or you're someone who started late and you just want a cheap player around that price, Brooks could be red hot.
Yeah, I mean, if Burton wasn't only 70k more than him, I would say, yeah, worth considering. But if you're going to buy a mid ranger, it has to be Burton over Brooks. But yeah, you're right. I know Fungi 5 weeks ago was hot on Luke Brooks just for this origin period. And DC is not getting any younger, so he might not play, he might not back up, or he might play reduced minutes. So he's an interesting option, but not really that interesting.
Yeah, just got to shout him out. Maybe in the draft leagues even. Now, tearing to center. Center's pretty luxurious. So first things first, Dylan Lucas. He's been named in the back row this week. We've seen Kyle McCarthy, a genuine center, come into the team there. I was sort of thinking that would happen sometime soon. The fact that they were absolutely demolished by Parramatta last week probably had a part to play in that as well. But Dylan Lucas is solid. If you've got him in your team, you play him this week. If you don't have him, I don't think you target him as a buy option, personally, just because that shoulder does sound like it's a bit dodgy, and you might as well anti-pod at this point. Now, for the big gun centers, we've got Herbie Farmworth, Kaylee Rowe, and I'm going to throw Ruben Garrick into this as well. Big price range, so about 170k between the group of them. Herbie Farmworth first. I'll take Herbie here because I'm a big Herbie guy. I remember making an individual video on Herbie last year, and about round 9 or round 10, when he was still like that sort of 40s guy. Just saying he's going to tear up, and he hasn't stopped tearing up since that video, so I'm claiming credit. But I think he's a captain option this week. So he goes up against that edge that's missing both Carraz and Crichton. He's up against Blake Taff, right? Herbie Farmworth v. Blake Taff at the center spot. Now, Taff will rock up and do a job, but I think Herbie grabs a couple of tries in this game. And I think maybe the Dogs even think about swapping, Bronson Zeri over to that side instead. But this game has Herbie Farmworth 100 points written all over it.
I love how high you are on Herbie, and I'm glad that he's in my team this week. The Lucas and Farnworth, I talk about every week. Lucas and Farnworth center combination is what dreams are made of. And I think, look, people are saying, Herbie's expensive. He's only 30 or 40k more expensive than what he started the season with. Like, he's just been super consistent as a center. And I will say, you always loved Herbie. And I'm going to just call it. I said in the preseason, like, it wasn't a flash in the pan because he went and played for England and he scored about 80 and 90 across 2 games at the end of the year at international level. He's just that good a center in fantasy. He just scores in pretty much every category except goals. Look, bloody hell, like, I think you have to have Farnworth this week. Like, if you're not getting him for this week, when are you going to get him, right? Like, he's the best. Him and Lucas are the best centers in fantasy. So if you don't have, like, I understand Lucas, like, he could have a shoulder injury or whatever, and he might be in doubt, and it looks like he's fine. But you got to have Farnworth and Lucas this week. Like, surely, like, they're the 2 best centers in the game, and they play
When
round
you're saying
12 and they
this,
play round 15.
40%. 40% of top coaches have Herbie.
Yeah,
Only 40.
that surely that goes up to 80, 90 this week. I'd be. I mean, I know he's expensive, but most people have guys like Dylan Egan and other cells like Yo, etc. So I expect that number for Herbie for the top 100, top 1,000 coaches to go from 40 to 80% this week. But yeah, that's enough Herbie. Herbie
Yep.
love.
Well, he's my captain,
Euro,
so
yeah,
that's where I'm going with him.
I love that. I love that as a pod captain. I mean, I personally won't be captaining Herbie, but I can see the 80 plus, especially if he's lining up against Taff. Like you said, he'll do a
It'll be
job.
a fun 2 hours, man. Regardless,
Yeah,
either I complain
yeah,
a lot or it'll be
yeah.
perfect.
I mean, Herbie's base this year is like 50 anyway, so
Yeah.
you know you're not going to lose too much out in him. Kale Euro, so he's been a beast this year. Like, well, last year we saw him be that 40 guy, and he wasn't scoring any tries. Like that was the one knock on him. He doesn't score tries. All that karma is coming back this year, and he's getting that all the tries this year. Like every game, he's scoring a try. And we saw the scoring profile without tries, so it only makes sense now. He's gone from mid 40s to mid 50s once you add tries and more line breaks in. I think he's playing extremely well to get to this level. I don't think he's close to the Herbie and Lucas conversation. Probably a good tier and a half below. I think the best centers by far are Herbie, Lucas, and the guy behind that is Famore. So I would be skipping Euro. I don't know. Do you disagree with me there?
No, I'm with you there. I think he's a hard one to jump onto. Dylan Lucas is close in price, but he's here because he's so close to the top. And if you're one of those coaches who doesn't have Dylan Lucas, you could pot up with Calero. You could pot up because I think Lucas. I wouldn't be buying Lucas right now. And if you're going, all right, well, I'm not going to buy Lucas. Who should I buy? It's Calero or it's Ruben Garrick, who's the next guy here. But the case for Ero is that he's in sensational form, playing well. Cronulla have sort of found their straps. They lose no one to Origin, and they're going to dominate through this period. So I don't mind him as a pod against Lucas if you want to go that way. But most coaches have Lucas. And if you have Lucas already and you're buying another center, you'd be silly not to buy Herbie Farmworth. So it's a very niche case that I'm throwing him in for here. Ruben Garrick's the other one. He's very relevant for the wing fullback conversation too. And that's what I'm buying him for this week. But I'm probably going to jump on Ruben Garrick. The run of fixtures is really good. So round 12 and round 15, for example, he plays Parramatta without Mitch Moses and Zach Lomax. Para fan, I love Para. I'd tip Parramatta if they had Moses and Lomax in this game, but without those guys, they sort of struggle. And then he's got the Titans in round 15 who are going to be missing Tino, Bo Firma, Mo Fodawaker, a few other guys there too. They always have a couple of injuries. So I think Ruben Garrick is a guy who's primed as the goal-kicking center for Manly and a big part of their attack to go on an absolute tear. And we've been lucky he's had a couple of quiet games recently and dropped down to 601K.
Yeah, that dual position makes him super attractive because wing centers are pretty easy. You need two of them. It's wing fullback that's hard. A lot of good wing fullbacks play Origin, so there's not much left. And the last center option here is Sam Riney back in the centers this week with Lomax in Origin and Simonson injured for about 10, 12 weeks. When Lomax does come back, what will happen is Sam Riney will just play minutes in the edge position, but we see Kelmer back this week, so probably less minutes in that edge rotation for him. I just think with the options we've named plus Lucas, who we're not talking about, I wouldn't be going Sam Riney. I think there's better options out there. But if you really need a cash down, he's not the worst. I think he's playing really well, so he could earn more minutes. And he's shown he can score pretty decently. But he ain't no Sean Russell, eh?
No, he's a bit more expensive. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I said on live, if he was dual position, I might have bought him a couple of weeks ago. But just pure center, it's not worth it there. Now, wing fullback, this is fun. And look, obviously, Ruben Garrick, just remember that Ruben Garrick is in this conversation. He is probably my favorite option of this group here. But if we were going another direction, a lot of you guys already have Ruben Garrick. If you needed a wing fullback, you can play it a few ways. So you can either try and get someone who's top tier, like Tedesco. You can go mid-range and go for value and sort of play a guy who might be a loopholer in other weeks for you. Or you can just go very cheap and save your money for next week and target Jaden Campbell, Scott Drinkwater, these types of guys. Now, the case for Tedesco is he's a beast, and he's been a beast for a decade, and he's going to keep being a beast going forward. He's 709K, which is not a discount necessarily, but the Roosters are clicking right now. They're playing good footy. Sam Walker comes back as soon as you mentioned, and he's a big part of that. So the attacking stats are come too. The downside here is he goes into this game this week up against Cronulla, who are full strength without any of his real forward support there. So I think the Roosters are going to get pounded in this game. I think they're going to get shut down. And I think Tedesco could struggle for attacking stats and just sort of rely on those base stats. So for this week, I'm kind of forecasting like a 35 to 45 point game. But if you're buying Tedesco, you're not buying him just for this week. You're buying him for the full origin period, so all 3 major buy rounds, and for the end game as well. So your bet on Tedesco here is if you want Tedesco, you buy him for the year because you think he's a keeper wing fullback. If you don't like him more than Drinkwater, Campbell, these other guys, don't get him this week. That's my answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think that's exactly right. And same like the 2 gun fullbacks available this week, Tedesco and then Fletcher Sharp. And like you said on Tedesco this week, Fletcher Sharp also has it a bit trickier this week at fullback, where he can't rely on 30 tackles a game. And Newcastle Knights struggling real bad in attack right now. Could barely score a point against Parramatta's defense. That's worrying. And no Ponga there as well. And I know Ponga's not playing great, but he's still their best attacking player. So they can't score points with him. Could be rough without him. So Fletcher Sharp is hard to pay a 55 price for this week playing a fullback.
Yeah.
But Tedesco, I think, is a good option. Good buy schedule. Look, Dylan Edwards, he hasn't been playing great, and he's still got that fullback spot. So I can't see Tedesco winning it back unless Edwards is injured. Tedesco did all he could to get that spot, and he still didn't get it. So I think the writing on the wall for him. Isako, look, needs to get on a hot run of fixtures and form to get back to that price. That kind of 50 average season was a flash in the pan. I just can't see it happening. I don't love Isako here for 48K when you could punt on 2-point turbo for 434K. Look, a lot of people have written Tommy off. Just think he's washed. I mean, all the fantasy signs point towards it. But I will say, at 434K, if I can gamble on Reece Walsh, I think I can gamble on Tommy Turbo. And he did still have last year that hot run of form to end the year to average 50. Look, he could play Origin round 15 for sure. Because the scenarios here is you pay 434K for him. It's like a 65 break even. He continues to suck and you lose more money and he's just plugging up a roster spot. And the other side is you buy him, he kills Parramatta, he goes on a hot run of form, and then he gets picked for Origin. So you're kind of stuck in, you kind of need some middling form from him, but not too good of form. It's kind of a hard situation. I mean, I know I like it. I know you like it. I know the rest of the casual athlete hate it. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's one of those bets that you sort of take where you go, all right, there's a 20% chance that this wins me fantasy, right? But there's a 80% chance that I hate my life. So the upside is huge. It's massive risk, massive reward. Probably the biggest risk versus reward decision of the year so far. Now, I'm selling Selwyn Cobbo, who was a bit of a failed pod, averaged like 45-ish.
That's not that bad. Solid.
Yeah, it was all right. I wanted a bit more out of him. So I'm selling him off. He's 450K. I'm thinking about Isako and Turbo because I'll just jump back to Isako for a sec. We talked about that Dogs game. We talked about the Dolphins tearing them up. Isako is the goal kicker and often their top try scorer. So I think Isako will feast this week. I'm not buying him for my fantasy side, but I just think he's going to tear up. And again, if you're a team that's low on cash, which I've seen a few of those recently, then Isako is a guy. But if you're a experienced sort of veteran coach, probably not jumping on him. Turbo. Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it here. But 434K up against Parramatta without their guys, I could just see him coming out and pop out a huge score. But I could also see him playing 40 minutes and disappearing. So
disappearing because of he not scoring any points, or disappearing because of his hamstring?
Like a hammy or, something like that. Like it's just, there's this full range of outcomes. Laurie Daly did a press conference recently that I saw where he was sort of talking about how Turbo is going to be back in the team at some point in the future. Didn't specify this year, but when he's fully fit. That's basically what he said. So I don't know if he's just sort of saying that to hype Turbo up, or if he's saying that Turbo's not fully fit right now. It's just one of those ones. So let's get to an answer here on Turbo, because my answer on Turbo is if you want to buy a lottery ticket and potentially screw yourself over and you waive all rights to complain about it, you can jump on Turbo and you can take a shot here. Or if you just want to, pretty much guarantee yourself a solid scorer, and lock in a guy, you go a bit more expensive and go Tedesco. Or if you like that Manly run and you don't want the headache of Turbo, you just go Ruben Garrick instead. So there are options there, but Turbo is big upside, and it's one that I'll think about.
I'm going to get a Turbo, and I'll tell you the reasons why I'm going to get Turbo. And it's because I'm already stacked at fullback. I've got Latrell, I've got Sharp, I've got Drinkwater. I don't need to add Tedesco when I'm planning to add Jaden Campbell next week, who I think is the best of the lot. And we saw him still get the majority of kick meters, even with Foreign at 6. So that gave me great faith that Campbell will be great. He still scored 50-odd with minus 16 in negatives. So I just don't need another 700k fullback this year. And I think Tommy Turbo, look, I don't have to play him every week. So he can just sit in a loop spot or just right at the bottom of my NPRs at 430k. He's probably going to be even cheaper next week unless he has a huge game. So my personal view, if you're stacked at fullback already, you've got guys like Drinkwater, Campbell, etc., feel free to get Tommy Turbo. If you need a legitimate every week option, hell no, I'd be getting Tedesco for sure.
Yep, fair play. Well, think about that one. And then some really, really cheap options, although not
Savage,
that much cheaper.
mate, you have been talking about Savage in the group chat for a few weeks. Did you get on?
Cheap?
He's
Mate,
not cheap anymore.
I actually wanted him this week as a cash out.
He went 1 week too early.
Yeah, mate, it happens a lot. I talked about remember Brian Kelly a few weeks ago as well? He scored that 70 in base stats. Like, yeah, Savage, he was 270k last week. He had a big break even. I thought, all right, he'll be 250. I'll jump on then. Came out and scored 74 points last week. Absolutely tore up. Scored a hat trick, right? So it's not going to happen every week. But yeah, if you were low on cash and you wanted a wing fullback that you can plug in this week and you can use as a loophole guy, a genuine loophole guy in other weeks, Savage is a good option at 312k. He has 100% job security. He doesn't fit into my team, just transparently. He's not in my side at all. But if you're desperate and you want that cheapie, he's a fun one. Now, I've included Blake Taff as well. So Blake Taff named the start at center this week. He'll cover Stephen Crichton, most likely, through this period. Although, they might do something different in future weeks when they have their full forward pack back. The thing is, though, Jamin Salmon's out, and he's normally that cover guy as well. So Blake Taff, 252k. This is a pure desperation play. If you're very, very low on cash, I'd go Savage over Taff unless you have some genius trade that requires a player at 252k.
Yeah, no, I agree. Nothing more to add. Let's sell, baby.
Bang. So sell's a bit different this week. We've got a breakdown, a tier list. Like if you work down the list and we start at the top, and these are the hard sells, and then we work down to less and less sellable into those really soft sells. So I've color schemed it and everything. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, Dylan Egan, first one. Sad news for him. He's obviously got that ACL injury. He's out for the year. That is one of the easier sells in fantasy. Earmark him for next year because hopefully he comes in a bit cheap. He's an absolute fantasy stud. Jacob Kiraz probably warrants a bit more conversation. He's less of a surefire sell than Egan, but he's still quite a sellable one. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks. That 4 to 6 weeks really is 5 to 6 weeks because of where their buys plan. So 5 to 6 weeks minimum. He might potentially be back in round 17, which is a long way away. And that calf injury is a high recurrence injury as well, which is just absolutely terrifying. So from my perspective, if you have Kraz, you're selling Kraz. Do you disagree, or do you want to jump to the next section?
Egan, Kraz, sell, buy, gone.
All right, well, I'll throw to you then. Connor Watson, obviously the big sell here, but then Yo and Toya warrant some conversation. What do you think about this group?
Sell all three. I think Yo misses a lot of games. There's a ton of mids available. Mids is a hard position to fill because you need 3 of them over these rounds. Yo misses, well, he's just missed 1, but he's going to miss 4 of the next 7 games or something.
Yep.
I just don't love that when you guys got guys like Aaron Clark, Tarpanay, even Corey Horsburgh didn't make Origin, like kind of doing not similar. I mean, Tarpanay and Clark are doing similar, but like just missing too many games. Rob Toya pretty much close to peaking. now with Origin, just a young guy that I can see just not losing his spot. I think he's solid. Unless the Maroons get hammered at home, I think they'll stick loyal with Toya, and he just misses way too many games with Origin and the Roosters by schedule factored. And he's not a keeper, and he's no longer a cashy, so he's an easy trade for me. And then Watson, he's less of an easy trade because he is a dual position guy who scores really well. But again, misses a ton of games, plays Origin, might not play full minutes with Zach Docker-Clay playing so well when he does back up, and just too many minutes of football missed. Out you go as well. Sorry, Connor.
I'll throw something in here too. There's a genuine chance that Rob Toya plays 0 of the next 7 games, right? So if he holds that Origin spot, he misses all those rounds. They have their buys in round 14 and 17, which are the weeks before those Origin games. So his 2 of 7 games that he's meant to play are backing up from Origin games. Now, their backup for Rob Toya is Dom Young, right? Which is actually pretty great. It's pretty luxurious there. So if he comes out of Origin a bit bruised and battered, which he will after matching up against Latrell Mitchell,
yeah, he's
their young gun superstar. They're not going to force him in, right? So he could miss 7 weeks of footy here. But he might miss Origin in future games and get back for you as well in round 2 and 3. So round 15, 18. But there is that potential he misses all 7, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's easy self mine. Like he's not good enough to hold, and he's not cheap enough to hold either. So he's the peak mid ranger right now. Sell him off.
Yeah. All right, bang, move him on. And then Ponga, Munster. These guys were probably more on the sell list. Like Munster was on my sell list until all these issues popped up. I was definitely going to sell Munster, but he's gone back-to-back 70-plus scores. He's made 60K in the last fortnight. I now look at him and go, you know what? I'll hold on for a bit longer and just see what happens. Now, I'm not completely convinced on this move. Obviously, Wishart is on the extended bench there, or on the bench, for the Storm. So he's available every week to come on for someone. Now, Jerome Hughes being very injured this year has definitely saved Munster from a few rests. The issue is when he's backing up from Origin, will that Jerome Hughes injury cause him to get a rest, or will it be Cam Munster backing up from a New South Wales drubbing that gets that rest instead? So that's the big question there. I guess Harry Grant as well could be the one to get a rest. But I just personally reckon with the low break even, with the great form he's in, and with the other issues I have, I'll keep Cam Munster.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think he's going hot, whereas Ponga's going cold. So I'll talk about Ponga. I just think he's going to have some sort of run this year. I don't know when it'll be. Nights look terrible. Could be. Look, Origin could revitalize him. Like he could come out of Origin and remember how good he can be, and he could come get a hot run of form. But I would also be like, he's made the Origin team whilst playing this badly, that I think he'll just be in the Origin team all 3 games because he can't play much worse and make the Origin team. And as a result, he's going to miss a ton of games. And just like I said about mids, winning fullbacks, you need 3 of them. And that's a hard position. The only thing is trading Ponga, you're not going to get any value out of him. He's lost so much value. So it might be a hard one, but I think now that he's made Origin, you have to get rid of him now. I just don't think he's worth having. And look, you can buy him back after Origin because he's not going to play too many games between now and the end of Origin. So I think even if he does get on a good run of form and you miss a couple of scores, you could probably get him at a discount price still afterwards. So I think he's still a sell for me.
I agree with that. The one reason he's a bit lower down this list is he doesn't miss any extra games due to buys. So
yeah,
that's a plus there. Then Max King, Nafahu White, Jackson Purdue, getting towards that hold section of this list, but they are sellable, right? So everyone on this list is sellable in the right scenario, but this bottom section is pretty holdy. Max King, I'll go with first. So for Max King, they play at Suncorp. He's in a 4th bench prop sort of position there that is very, very tenuous. It's one that a few players are contending for, and it's one that the incumbents are only missing, a couple of weeks for and could potentially jump back in for. Right. So Jake Trbojevic, for example, he's probably in that spot if he doesn't knock Copper HIA last week. And if they go up to Suncorp, the Blues, and lose this game, which is probably what's the favorite to happen. It's not what I think will happen, but it's the most favored thing to happen. Gerber could come back in and steal that spot. And then Max King would be freed up for the Dogs' duties, and he would play rounds 15 and round 18 major buy rounds, which are huge, huge issues for fantasy coaches. So there's still a world where Max King is very holdable. There's also a world where the Blues go up there, they dominate, they win. He's a great player in that game, and you go, all right, he's keeping his spot, and you sell. But I think it's just a case of you hold this week for sure, right? Just wait and see this 1 week, watch Origin, see how he is, and make that call next week.
Yeah, I think that's right. The thing with King is the only reason anyone has King in their team is for the bye period. So making Origin is such a kick in the guts.
Such a
So
fluke, eh? You didn't expect it.
No, it doesn't make much sense. But honestly, I think good on him, and I think you're right. Unless you really have to sell him to get 13 this week, I think you just watch one more week, assess whether you think he'll be there for round 2. I think out of every single person that has made Origin for the Blues this year for the first game, he is the most at threat. He is the most potentially temporary spot, so he could definitely lose that. Even if they win, he could lose that. Because I don't see him getting on the park much. Like Haas will command big minutes. Like all their players in that side are big minute players, and Watson could be used through the middle. So I think he only really plays 25, 30 minutes. So there's not going to be any issues there. But yeah, I think you're right with him. White and Purdue, they're more interesting. White, again, unfortunately misses this round, but should be back for the next major buy rounds, which is what you want from him. And there's not, like I said, not many great mid options for round 15. So if you do think of selling White, I would properly evaluate your round 15 mids, because you might be killing yourself there with no mids left if you get rid of him. Dual position as well. And then Purdue, I think he's an easy one because his buy schedule after this round is excellent. The first game at the halves position didn't look great for him, but I will remind you, if you look at who's leading the Dally M, Luke Metcalf had a similar start in the halves. You never know with these guys. You don't want to write them off fast, especially when they've got talent. Purdue, for me, like, he had a bad game, but I mean, Drinkwater scored 18 in that game. So it just wasn't one for the Cowboys skill players. I wouldn't write off Purdue based on his score there. I don't think the thesis has changed on him after one game. And he plays the center position in both the major buy rounds, and he also might get halves dual position soon. So he's definitely more of a hold for mine.
He also plays like that uninterrupted run to round 27. That's the big thing there. As we've talked about this, by the way, I was sort of thinking about Purdue, thinking about selling Robert Toyer. As we've discussed it, I've sort of switched my mind to selling Toyer and keeping Purdue. So I probably should have thought of that as I was making these slides too, when I put Toyer right up there. But that's where I'm at. With White, I just want to shout out here. Yeah, due back round 15. Look at the Roosters forward pack this week. Look at how under strength they are. And you tell me that Nafahu White isn't going to play like 65 minutes in that team in round 15 and round 18. Like, he's going to be an absolute force in those weeks. So I think you got to keep him in the team at that point. Lindsay Collins making the Queensland side on the back of one game as well. That definitely helps Nafahu White. So yeah, he's a rock solid option. You definitely want to keep him. It's really bad luck that you got injured for you, but make the most out of it. Then the bottom of the list here, I've been asked about these guys quite a bit, so I think it's worth mentioning them. Of these three, if I was going to sell one, it would require a few circumstances, right? So I'd need to be really short on cash and have missed all the cash cows and done all that and need the money. I'd sell Payne Haas if I was going to sell one of these three, and that feels sacrilege to say. But big bad Payne Haas, he's dealing with a couple of injuries right now. He's going to play a big role in Origin. The Broncos have pretty good backup at the middle forward position there too. I think this could be a quiet Origin period where we get some big scores out of him, but we see a bit of a decline in the minutes.
I want to say the opposite. I'd say I'd sell Cleary. I'm not. Okay, let me prove that. I'm not selling any of these guys. I think with Cleary, Haas, they're so good in fantasy that the argument for so obviously when we said sell Yo, he misses 4 of the next 7 now. So does Cleary. The thing with Cleary is he's so much better than the next half this year. Like, he's 10 points better than the next half. He's a 70 guy and the rest are 60 guys. Whereas Yo is not. Like, Yo is a replaceable guy, whereas Cleary isn't. And Cleary's in good form right now. He's coming off the back of a few good scores. Great fixtures, the Tigers and Eels next couple of weeks, where he could go big. So that's why I personally am holding. But I would sell Cleary over Haas, because the thing with the Haas is Broncos have lost 5 out of the last 6. Hot seat now on Madge. Like, I know it's not really that much pressure on him for his job, but they started the season so well. They're losing now. They need Haas to play, and Haas can get it done in reduced minutes too. I agree with the niggly injuries. Like, he does love a niggly injury, Payne Haas, throughout the seasons. But I just think that the Broncos need him this year, and I see definitely like maybe closer to 50, 55 minutes. But trading him out will require a couple more trades to get back in at his price. So I personally don't love it. I think the buy schedule for the Broncos is pretty friendly as well for an Origin player. Like, yeah, he missed 12 and 15 anyway. So I would personally be trading Cleary over Haas, but in my idea, like in my head, they're both firm holds.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. It's more for a coach. Like, let's say I see some teams where they started a month ago, right? And they don't have a lot of money and they want to look at this kind of thing. But yeah, both guys that I'll be holding as well. Definitely sold Yo last week. And then Bo Firma's the last one here. People have asked about him. I think you keep Bo Firma. Like you mentioned before, he's in that top 3 centers conversation. He hasn't been as nuclear as the other two over the last couple of weeks. Everyone's sort of forgotten he scored 100 about a month ago. But Bo Firma, he plays that bench role for Queensland. He's going to be a bench second rower. So both him and Hudson Young, I could probably mention him in this conversation too. They're not going to play huge minutes in Origin, and they're going to back up effectively for their clubs. And their buy schedules mean they don't miss any games until round 19 at the earliest. So you hold Bo Firma and you enjoy the big scores he's been putting out.
Yeah, nothing more to add. That's perfectly played, and that's it. That's holds or sells done.
Anyway, Biz, I know you got to go to work, mate. So cheers for jumping on all the way from New York. Always good to have you on. And everyone, good luck this week. Trade hard, trade aggressively, and try to maximize your points this week because this is when the season is made. Good luck, everyone.